We're going to lighten things up here today. Welcome to the Social Spreader here on a Tuesday. As I said, we're going to lighten some things up here today, and since I'm a huge history buff, I'm going to unveil a segment called Back in the Day. I know it sounds very familiar to a show that I'm a huge fan of, and I'm not going to make it a secret anymore. Back in my day is the other segment. This is Back in the Day, where I'm going to take a look back on this day throughout history to try to find something interesting, try to find something clever, try to find something noteworthy to share with my droves and millions of listeners. And something actually happened that was very interesting on January 18th, 1920. It was the start of the Oahu sugar strike. 8,300 mostly Filipino and Japanese workers went on strike on the island. At that point it was the territory of Hawaii, but they were working on a sugar plantation because they wanted to have their pay raised to $1.25 a day. Let me repeat that. 8,300 workers went on strike so they could make $1.25 a day. And of course, this was back in 1920. I said something like this earlier this week where history might not repeat itself, but it often rhymes. Because less than a week ago, 8,000 workers at Kroger went on strike demanding higher pay, while their CEO made $22 million. And I found this extremely fascinating, considering that this kind of jump-started a lot of strikes for higher pay throughout the next 20 to 30 years. And again, as a history buff, this is extremely interesting to me because this is something that I didn't even know. And I find it absolutely fascinating that on this day in 1920, 8,000 workers went on strike. And on this day in 2022, 8,000 workers went on strike. So I find that really interesting. I'm also going to start a new candid type of experience for, again, my millions upon millions of followers and listeners. Because I do consider myself a professional sports gambler, why not be candid? Why not be honest? And let's see how a professional did over Super Wild Card Weekend. But before we do that, can we just talk about how diluted the NFL product was over the weekend? How many games were good? One that we know of for sure, but it was covered in controversy, which is really kind of interesting simply because the NFL made a statement that they put on their letterhead that contradicted what they said in regard to the Raiders-Cincinnati game and the whistle and the touchdown. And we'll get more into that as we continue. But I'm just going to be very honest and open with how my weekend went. One thing that I will not ever do is talk money here. This is about picking winners. This is about finding good leans and finding good fades. And whatever money I can put in your pocket, that's your business. It's no one else's. Just like whatever I do is no one else's business. Been doing this now for greater part of 20 years. And so with my September 20, 2003 win with Oregon, it's not about the money anymore. I want to try to be a resource. I want to try to help people. I want to make sure that you get as much information from me as you possibly can, absorb it, make the picks however you see. And so just wanted to kind of comment real quick about how not super this wild card weekend was. I think everybody would agree the Eagles had no business being in the playoffs. The Steelers had no business being in the playoffs. So pretty much the entire state of Pennsylvania had no business being in the playoffs. And again, I truly do question what games were good because from what I remember, Wild Card Weekend used to be awesome. It used to be so much fun because every time a 6 seed was in, they'd either cover it or they would hit the under. I'll put this up on my Instagram page, but I believe the stat was in 2019, the 6 seeds were 4-0 to the over. I'm sorry, 4-0 to the under, and they were 3-1 against the spread and 3-1 straight up. And so when you add a 7 in there, it gets a little bit much. But let's let's just go ahead and, well, you know what? And also, whether or not it was a good game is really all in the eye of the beholder, because depending on your leanings, depending upon where you had any money, I know where the public was. I know that there's a lot of casinos that were happy. A couple of them weren't. But without further ado, let's just go ahead and find out where I was right and where I was wrong. I want to start off by giving my condolences to the people who had Vegas at +6, me included. It opened +6, -105. I jumped all over it. And that's a really tough pill to swallow, considering what I said earlier, that the NFL put on letterhead a contradiction about what they said about the touchdown and the whistle and everything like that. The thing that sucks, and I've said this before on other shows, this is what gives the naysayers the ammo of it being rigged and how gambling is going to corrupt sports, because I guess they weren't corrupt before. And it really sucked, because I personally didn't see anything wrong with that play. I understand that an inadvertent whistle can really screw up the flow of a play. But at the end of the day, man, Oakland, Las Vegas, that's fine. $2. They had their opportunities, and they missed a lot of plays that probably would have put them into the divisional round. Again, me included, I had the Raiders at +6. That was a toughie. I thought the easiest pick of the weekend was Tampa. Tampa to cover, whether you had first half or whether you had the game. I had the game. I believe I got them at 8.5, -110, and so it was pretty much a coin flip. But that was a rocking chair game, as they say. When a lot of the times when you're watching a game, you sweat out every 5-yard penalty, you sweat out every holding call. You want to have holding called on every single play, because essentially it can be. That was quite the rocking chair game. So when I saw the temperature for the New England Buffalo game, I jumped all over the over-under. I believe I got it at 43.5. That went really well. That really made me feel like I knew what I was doing. Anytime that happens, when one team actually goes over the over-under, not only is it a slice of humble pie, but you got to eat the whole fucking pie. So I did. I had the Chiefs first half -7.5, -105, and I also had the Chiefs -13, -105 as well. They figured out stuff over the last couple of weeks of the season. They figured out stuff on the other side of the ball. Mahomes and Kelsey and Hill, and now McKinnon, who was an incredible running back for the Vikings, got hurt. Didn't really pan out with the 49ers, but wow, couldn't have even dreamt up a more perfect addition to that offense. And they're going to get theirs. And so 7.5 halftime, I sweated that out just a little bit, but third and 20, who would have thought a 15-yard out to Travis Kelsey, maybe the best receiving tight end of all time, turned into a touchdown. And that was a fun cover. Once again, quite the rocking chair game, though, having the Chiefs at -13. And wow, can we talk about the Arizona Cardinals and how they are the biggest conundrum of the season, of any season, actually, in recent history. All the money that I won, all the winners that I picked in the first 8 weeks of them playing, I gave it all back. I gave it all back over a super wild card weekend. Curious, if they extend it to 8 teams, is it going to be super duper wild card weekend, or super wild card weekend plus, or just wild card weekend plus? Put it on the poll. The saviors of the weekend were in my opinion, a team nobody wants to see. Just like if the Minnesota Vikings had made it in, nobody wants to see them. The San Francisco 49ers. I picked them. The line opened at them +3. I jumped all over it. I also jumped all over the under 51. That was not a good game, though. What was it, 23-7 going into the fourth? So, again, there was really one game. But the San Francisco 49ers were the savior of the weekend, and they set me up for this. As you know, from what I have said numerous times in the past, I never relinquish an opportunity to rip on Texas, especially the Cowboys. And this is something that I'm going to thoroughly enjoy. Since 1995, okay? Let's do some math here. That's 27 years. You've made the playoffs 11 times. Since 1995, you're 4-11 in the playoffs. Since 1995, you've lost to the Panthers, the Seahawks, the Giants, the Vikings, the Packers, the Rams, and then the 49ers. Literally, the entire country has beaten you since 1995 in the playoffs. Since 1995, you are 4-4 at home in the playoffs. Since 1995, you are 0-6 in the divisional round, which means, you guessed it, you haven't made an NFC championship game since 1995. You are not America's team. You are Murica's team. A self-entitled, self-absorbed, self-destructive, annoying, insignificant thing. And boy, that makes me so happy. The one thing that I've always wanted to do is to become a celebrity. For one reason only. So I can challenge an old dude named Skip to a celebrity boxing match, which I will do gladly. So if you feel the same way about seeing that guy in a celebrity match, let's go ahead and make me a celebrity. Until then, let's do some lines. So the college hoops season is really where I've been having some luck. And I call it luck because what we have seen over the last, couple of years is it's really a hard gig. This is really hard to do. And I know I say it a lot. And I just want to make sure that, all of my fans, my millions upon millions of followers, aren't losing faith, aren't losing confidence, because the one thing I know, hot streaks go cold, and then cold streaks go hot. Again, I've said this before. There's a reason why if you hit 52% of your wagers, you are a professional. This shit is hard. And so what I'm trying to do at this point right now, so this is really the final stretch of college hoops. And teams now are really trying to jockey for position in the NCAA tournament, in their conference tournaments. This is really when I believe a lot of teams try to put their best foot forward. So you do get a lot of the very good efforts. So the first matchup I want to look at tonight is Davidson at VCU. These two teams have been juggernauts against the spread. They are a combined 21-8 against the spread. So, why are we trying to find any kind of a leaning on this? Well, it's because of this, okay? Davidson is 10-0 in their last 10. I've been all over them. VCU, 7-3, extremely respectable. VCU's been 8-2, has went 8-2 against the spread. So has Davidson. Davidson is 4-0 against the spread on the road. They're also 4-0 to the over. So what I'm looking at here is how many points can I get? If you can get Davidson at 3 points, because right now VCU's favored by 2.5, and about 65% of the money is on them at home. Granted, they're undefeated at home over their last 10. So this is a tough one from the perspective of I don't usually purchase any points. I know that there's a lot of casinos out there that allow that. You can bring it from 2.5 to 3. It usually changes your vig from -110 to -120. And if you want to eat those extra 13 cents, go ahead. I just know that no one likes a halfie. But when it comes to how often half a point is going to impact your outcome, it's pretty slim. And so if you can get plus 2.5, if you can get maybe wait until closer to tip-off. Home favorite money usually comes in closer to tip-off, driving that up. And since they're already at 2.5 and 65% of the money's already on VCU at home, I'm assuming maybe pushing 70% of the money is going to come up closer to tip-off. And so if you want action on that, go ahead and wait. Both of these teams, though, they're 6-4 to the over on their last 10. And as I said, Davidson 4-0 to the over their last 10. So I am going to lean Davidson on the spread. Also going to take the over. Right now, the over-under is right at about 133. That's generally a pretty average over-under. So I am going to go with the over with that as well. The next game that we're looking at is Ball State at Toledo. I get it. I know. You probably come on to most shows and they talk about the Blue Bloods. They talk about Gonzaga. They talk about Duke. They talk about Baylor. They talk about Kentucky. I like to try to find value. And what I'm looking at right now is a team that is 1-5 on the road this year. They're also 1-5 against the spread on the road this year. Okay? And Toledo is a quiet 13-4 and 12-5 against the spread. And the last time that I checked, okay, so the line jumped a little bit. Right now it's Toledo at 12. I'm going to hop all over that. I know Ball State's got some hoopers. They're 5-1 against the spread in their last 6. Toledo 7-1 against the spread in their last 8. So I do see that these are two teams essentially going in opposite ways. Their last 10, Toledo 7-3, Ball State's 4-6, and they're 1-4 straight up on the road, 1-4 against the spread as well. And a lot these teams have over the last 10 games, they've hit the under. So wow, okay, they're 5-13-2 on the under. And it's 155. I might put a little lunch money on the under as well because these two teams have been going on the under for the last 10 games. I'm going to go Toledo to cover. I don't think this is a good spot for the Cardinals as they just lost by 6 points to, well, they've lost 2 in a row. They've lost 3 out of the last 4, actually. So Ball State's limping in here. They're terrible on the road. And again, Toledo is a sleeper. They've been doing really well this year. I'm rolling with them. Going to sprinkle a little bit on the under. The next game, you know what? We're going to do that one next. So the next game that I'm looking at is Wisconsin at Northwestern. Wisconsin, for some reason, I feel like has been underneath the radar as well, too, this year, which is shocking because they're normally not. They're pretty much a household team. But they are only 3-point favorites here today. Let me check that. They are, wow. Why is that? Something doesn't make sense to me, which usually makes me feel a little bit off when it comes to it. However, their last 6 games against Northwestern, they're 5-0-1 against the spread. Their last 10, they're 9-1 straight up. They're 7-3 against the spread. Northwestern in their last 10's 5-5, and they're 0-4 against the spread at home. So they don't cover at home at all. Now, look at the over on this because Northwestern in their last 10 is 3-1 to the over. Wisconsin, their last 10 is 3-1 to the over on the road. And right now that's at 140. I think that's a solid number to go over, so I'm going Wisconsin in the over. Wisconsin's a really good team. They're a quiet 14-2, 11-5 against the spread. Northwestern's 9-6, 6-8 against the spread. So I think this is just two teams that are in different tiers. And so I'm going to go with Wisconsin here tonight. This is another case of two teams going in opposite ways. Air Force is going to the Smurf turf. They're going to Boise. They don't play on turf. My apologies. That's a fine. $5. I am looking at two teams that are really going in opposite ways. Air Force is 0 last 10 games. Air Force is 0-4 on the road, 1-3 against the spread. At home, they're a juggernaut. They're a very good team at home. Boise, on the other hand, 9-1 straight up, and they are 6-3 against the spread. And the last 3 times these two teams have played, Boise is 3-0. I think this is not a good spot for Air Force as they're coming off games against Colorado State and Nevada, two very good teams that maybe should have beaten them a little bit more. But here's the one thing that I like to do in these instances. I like to look at trends because a lot of college teams, they are who they are, especially on the road. Air Force is 0-9 straight up, the last 9 playing on the road, okay, against this team. On January 12th, Boise played Nevada, beat them by 15. On January 15th, which was, 3 days ago, Air Force lost to Nevada by 7. I understand that this is a large number to cover. It's 19, but I think it's going to happen. I don't think this is a good spot for Air Force. I don't think they want anything to do with this team. Maybe look at the first half if you're not willing to swallow the 19. I'm guessing you can probably get the first half around 11. And again, these are two teams just going in opposite ways. So I'm going to go with the Smurf Turfers. You know what? I'm just going to call them that. I'm just going to call them the Smurf Turfers. The last game that I want to look at is an interesting one because of the storyline. It's Iona at Monmouth. If you were listening to my other shows, you would have known that I've been a Monmouth fan huge this year. They were 12-0 against the spread. They started the year 12-0 against the spread. Then they got ravaged by COVID. In fact, they didn't play for a month. The last 2 times that they've played, they lost to St. Peter's and they lost to Marist, where they didn't even score 50 points. In fact, Marist beat them by 40. Iona, the vampire-coached Iona Gales, are a quiet 14-3. They're 11-6 against the spread. I just don't think that Monmouth has their feet underneath them yet. I think that it's just not a good... I don't think it's a good locker room right now. Just because everyone is still getting over the sickness. They just got blown out by 40 against a team that, honestly, I believe they were favored. They were favored by 6 points, and they lost by 40. And right now the spread is Iona at 3. I like that. I'm going to jump all over it just because Monmouth isn't who they are. And I've said this before, reverting to the mean is something that I do believe in because it's one of 2 ways that you can look at the spread of a game. It's either a prognostication of the score or it's just an arbitrary number that the sports books want to put on it in order to get equal money on each side. And a lot of teams tend to revert to that. And so I'm going to go with Iona. So there's 5 college hoops games that I can give you on a Tuesday. Some good leanings. I think we got 6 or 7 options in there with the over-unders and everything. So whatever you choose to do tonight, good luck with your bets. Thanks for tuning in on Tuesday.